Africa. Mauritian Judge Minister Ravi Yeri Gadu resigns over allegations of money laundering. Togo Parliament to discuss presidential term limits today. Number of refugees fleeing the Central African Republic to neighboring countries takes a leap. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Nwokam. We begin with President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, his visit to Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital territory. Mr. Museveni, who is in the country with his wife Janet on a private visit, is right now in a closed-door meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari. Museveni's visit comes on the heels of Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo, who was in the country a couple of days ago, also on a private visit with President Buhari. He said he had come to inquire on the president's health. However, there are no details yet of the meeting between Presidents Muhammadu Buhari and Museveni, but we'll bring you details as we get them. The Justice Minister Ravi Yeri Gadu has resigned from office. This comes after the press published document got to the Supreme Court. He was accused of playing a role in allowing money to go from an online gambling site to his bank accounts in Switzerland and Dubai. Meanwhile, he has denied any involvement in the deal, describing the allegations as false. In Togo, a bill to examine presidential term limits is top on the agenda in Parliament today. The bill includes a two-term limit for the president and two-round voting system. But opposition leaders have expressed some concern. Some fear the bill could be drafted in a way that would allow President Faure Gnassingbé to run for office again. Mr. Gnassingbé has been in power since 2005 and is already serving his third term. He took over the mantle of leadership after the death of his father, who ruled for 38 years. Protests demanding the immediate resignation of the president have been ongoing since August. At least 2 protesters have died and dozens arrested so far. Meanwhile, opposition leaders are calling for more protests next week. Well, joining us now to talk about this is Dr. Adetokunbo Pierce. He's a public affairs analyst and also a lecturer at the University of Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, age limits for presidential candidates in Africa appear to be a big challenge, somewhat. Taking the case of Togo, where the parliament wants to address the issue, what would you recommend as an age limit for African presidents going forward?
I know that the question has also come up in Nigeria recently. I think it is a very juvenile and childish discussion. Age should not be the issue, it should be the quality of your health. Consider that a 40-year-old person may be less healthy and actually much weaker than a 60-year-old person. So age should not be the issue, it should be more of a question of quality of health. President Buhari's situation is not because of his age, it is because of the quality of his health. So it is not so much the age that I would say is important. There are many more things that are important than that, but I think when it comes to the person, it should be more of the quality of health.
Okay, I know a lot of people would not necessarily agree with what you've said. I also remember a question that was posed to President Museveni, interestingly, in 2012, where he gave an interview when they asked him, someone who was about to clock 75. He said that someone who clocks 75 years lacks the vigor to rule as president. He said, vigor. That isn't that important. You talked about, that's 75. Can you be as strong as 40 or 35?
It's very important. But what is more important is the quality of the health. For instance, you could be 40 years old and not be as healthy as a 75-year-old person. A 75-year-old person may be actually strong and healthy. We've seen it in countries, the United States, President Reagan, current President Trump, in their 70s, looking strong. So that has little to do with it. What's most important, And we've had this problem in Nigeria. We have people going in for office, and we don't have their medical certificate. When you talk about age, consider this fact. Many people in Africa, particularly, do not actually know their age. The president that says he's 72, 73, may be actually 80 years old. They all guess. Declaration of age is what we use more than anything else. So this is why I'm saying that what is most important is the quality. Of course, when you are 75, you're 80, you are obviously not as healthy, most likely. So that will disqualify you automatically. But we shouldn't assume that a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old person is healthier and stronger and has more vigor than a 65-year-old person. So that's the point I'm making.
Look, taking Nigeria as a case study, where we have the president, no one anticipated that he would spend over 100 days abroad on medical vacation of some sort. So do we need to include that in the Constitution?
Definitely. This is why I have always said it, and it doesn't make sense to me why anybody would challenge this. How would you go into office without us knowing whether you are healthy and you are strong enough for the job? So what we should have had with President Buhari was his medical certificate, not his age. President Buhari was not well before he got into office. He had been sick before, and during the campaign, he collapsed a couple of times on the campaign trail. We should have known then that we may have a problem with this president's health. So it is not so much of his age, it is the quality of his health that is most important. After all, he is in the same age bracket with Reagan when he was president, and with other presidents across the country, including Donald Trump.
Okay, now there's this particular article in the Constitution of Uganda, 102 sub B, that talks about presidential candidates, the age limit between 35 and 75. Now they're trying to perhaps scrap that. How far do you think we can take this age limit for the presidency? None?
Well, it's a
100?
Guide. No, it's a guide. It's okay. Good. I think actually 75 is pushing it. But what is the most important is the quality of your hair. You could be 75 and be a very weak old man. You could be 35 and be a sickler. So it depends on the quality more than anything else. But there should be guidelines. I think 35 and 75 is excellent.
All right. Well, someone said even some young people who have occupied position perhaps have not really done any better. On the issue of leadership, where would you draw the line? What do you see as important?
Look, I remember former President Obasanjo saying that they should allow young people to come in because when he was head of state, he was only in his 30s, so was Gawon.
But let's also look at the broader picture. You know, we're talking about Africa.
Sure. It's a good example. He's an African president. They are all the same. So the point is, when he got into office at that age, nobody voted him in. It was a military coup. It was leadership by force. So he cannot use that as an example. What is important in leadership is integrity, experience, competence, you know. But if you don't have good health, you cannot practice all these things. But what is most important is integrity and competence and efficiency, more than anything else. Honesty, good character, before we talk about anything else. That's what I think is most important.
All right, we want to thank you, Dr. Adetokunbo Pierce, Public Affairs Analyst and Lecturer at the University of Lagos, for joining us to talk about this matter.
Thanks for having me.